You sons of bitches. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're taking a look at a game that's part of a series beloved by many. When the second game in the series was a disappointment, Idols Montreal came through and redeemed the series in many fans' eyes. But now, another entry in the series has appeared, and fans everywhere are face-palming in irritation. So, get out the booze and prepare yourself for what's to come, as today, we're taking a look at Deus Ex, The Fall. God damn it. Deus Ex The Fall is a game developed for iPad originally by Idols Montreal and Enfusion Interactive on the Unity game engine. Idols Montreal came up with the original concept and worked with Enfusion to develop the game, but the bulk of the actual development work was handled by Enfusion. The game is set in the year 2027 and follows a character named Ben Saxon, who is an augmented mercenary formerly of the British SAS. This is a prequel to Deus Ex Human Revolution, and the story is canon, meaning that for fans of the series, it's an integral part of it, which is unfortunately where the problems begin. Let's start with the graphics. As this game was originally developed for iPad, eventually ported to Android, and finally ported to PC, graphics are not much to look at. They've stated that they've upscaled the graphics for PC, but that is actually all they've done aside from slapping some anti-aliasing and VSync options onto the game. Texture quality is terrible and is a huge downgrade from Human Revolution. They also state that the game has unique visuals, but they basically copied the style of Human Revolution when they created the game. While it's fine to keep things consistent, it would have been much simpler to just create the game in a pre-existing engine using already created assets, rather than trying to copy the visual style in the Unity game engine. Character models and animations also look terrible, with many animations being very janky or simply left out. For example, one scene you're getting a shot and they've opted to not animate any portion of the doctor giving Ben a shot or him receiving it. Ben just kind of narrates the whole process. This is kind of lazy programming that is prevalent throughout the game. For visuals, I have to give the game a point under Don't Play. While this may have been acceptable on a mobile phone or tablet, it just doesn't do the job on PC. Next up, the story. While this is based on James Swallow's Deus Ex Icarus Effect novel, I can honestly say that the execution here was poor. I haven't read the novel, so I can't say whether the novel was straight up bad or if Enfusion did a poor job telling it, but there's very little substance to be found here. The basic plot begins with Ben and his partner in hiding, Anna Kelso, hiding in a safe house from the Illuminati in Costa Rica, as Ben recounts the events of the past. He covers how he was manipulated by Yaron Namir and the loss of his squad mate Sam Duarte. In any other medium, this would probably be a fairly decent story, but there's multiple problems here. First of all, the voice acting is very low quality. Since this was originally a mobile game, I'm surprised that it's voiced at all. But the low budget definitely shows through whenever someone speaks. It's hard to take people seriously when they sound as bad as they do. Next, the actual dialogue is very stilted. One of the major draws to the Deus Ex series is the story and intrigue it builds along the way, but that doesn't ever really take off here. Scenes feel very abbreviated, and you rarely have the choice that the Deus Ex series is so well known for. What you get instead is a long, jumbled mass of poorly voiced dialogue, followed by a single choice: end. That's right. In most cases, you have no say over the direction of the conversation, and very rarely will you make any choices that matter. Sure makes you glad you spent those 2 practice points for additional dialogue options, doesn't it? My biggest complaint about the story is that it's incomplete. The game costs $9.99 on PC right now and offers a mere 4 hours of gameplay, and that's with taking the time to try and explore as much of the game as possible. The game ends with a "to be continued." The game even says that more content is on its way. However, this game was released on July 11th, 2013 on iOS. Surely if they were going to add more content, it would have been released by now, right? Nope. There's no sign of any more content being released for the game as of this video. So if you're truly interested in the story, my recommendation is to buy James Swallow's novel and read it. It's the same price on Kindle as this game, and you actually get a complete story. Odds are if they ever finish the game, they're going to charge you for the rest of it, which is something that seems to be becoming a norm these days for many game developers. I don't know about you, but when I buy a game, I like to get a complete game instead of a piece of one. For story, I'm also giving the game a point under don't play. It's simply not executed well. The poor voiceovers will grate on you, the uninteresting characters will leave no impact, and the story is simply not complete. Buy the book instead. And now we get into the gameplay. You can tell that this game was originally developed for mobile devices from the moment you start the game. The UI was obviously designed with finger swiping in mind, and translates poorly to PC. The AI, while they claim it's been enhanced for PC, is dumb as a rock. The cover system is clunky and is useless the majority of the time. Gunplay feels absolutely horrible with the lack of recoil and any sort of decent aiming. The mouse control is janky as all hell. In short, the game is an absolute mess. Let's start with the AI and the cover system. In Deus Ex The Fall, if you alert an enemy and then go into cover, they will completely forget where you are 90% of the time. On multiple occasions, I went into cover and the AI would just stand there until the alert faded and walk away from me. Or hell, you can even just walk out of the room when they're alerted and they will just go back to their normal routines like nothing ever happened. Oh, but don't worry, if you stun or kill an enemy, their body dissolves within a few seconds. When they dissolve before another guard gets there, then it's like they never existed in the first place, and nobody will be alerted to the fact that they're missing. Any sort of tactical gameplay and the fear of having a body you've hidden discovered is completely removed from this game to coincide with the lack of available resources on mobile platforms. This wasn't fixed for PC. When hopping into cover, half the time you end up stuck on a wrong surface. And then when you actually need to shoot something, there's no popping out of cover to aim. When you pop out of cover to shoot, you have to hold down the fire button, otherwise you go back into cover. Aiming is extremely clunky as a result of this. With as terrible as it is on PC, imagine how poor it is on mobile devices. I'm honestly surprised that anyone on a cell phone or tablet could complete this game with combat in this state. The FOV in Deus Ex The Fall is also locked. I'm not entirely certain exactly what it is, but it's just barely high enough to prevent people that are prone to motion sickness from getting sick. Even so, rotating with the mouse feels way too loose, and oftentimes it seems like you're rotating faster than you should be able to. The in-game mouse acceleration is terrible, and many people have had issues with either having to crank their sensitivity way up or way down in order to get the game to feel as it should. Now, Deus Ex is all about choice. Choice in how you deal with each situation. Choice in where you go and how you complete objectives. Choice in who you kill and don't kill. So how much choice does Deus Ex The Fall give you? Very little. When you begin the game, you're immediately put into a tutorial level that has virtually no choice in where you go or what you do. For example, during the first shooting sequence, you can't fire your crossbow until the game tells you that you can. In fact, you actually have to kill the guards, you have no choice in the matter. After you finish the guards off, you can no longer bring your crossbow out. And then it forces you to crouch in a stealth section to teach you how to use the stealth system. While this hand-holding may have been acceptable on a mobile device, it's not what we've come to expect on PC. Once you finally get out of the horror tutorial and get into Panama City, the game starts to finally feel like a Deus Ex game. While you have quests that do eventually take you to every place that you can actually go to, there is some flexibility in where you go and how you get there for some places. There's a number of secrets, computers, and safes to hack and side quests. However, at this point the game is played with numerous loading screens due to the original limitations of the iPad, and it really detracts from exploration. As I progressed through the game, it just made me want to go and play the original Deus Ex or Deus Ex Human Revolution again instead. The other unfortunate thing is that the game only has one open area in it. Once you have completed the story in Panama City, the credits roll, so it truly feels like an abbreviated and incomplete experience. There's just so many things wrong with the gameplay that I have to give Deus Ex The Fall another point under don't play. It messes up even the basics of Deus Ex, and though it tries to do some things better later on, the game isn't long enough for any of that to matter. And lastly, the sound. When you're sitting at the menu screen, it actually sounds like a Deus Ex game. That is about as close as it gets, though. I've already commented on the poor quality of the voiceovers, but I'll say it again. They are straight up bad. Many of the people in Panama City have fake accents, and most sound the same, which means they obviously had a limited pool of voice actors to work with. This is expected due to their budget constraints, but it doesn't help the game any.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Even listening to Major Quest NPCs talk, I was tempted to skip through their dialogue on multiple occasions because they simply sounded terrible. The voice actor that does Ben Saxon is the only one that sounds decent, as he should since he has the majority of the dialogue in the game, but he still leaves much to be desired. There's no real emotion being conveyed by the majority of the voice actors. It's obvious that they're just reading from the script with no real direction. The in-game music is of little note, too. Aside from the menu music, there's a brief moment where Ben is jumping out of an airplane that has some fairly catchy sounds, but other than that, the music is utterly generic and forgettable. I really wish I could say more about the voice acting or music, but there's just nothing else to say. They're functional but forgettable. So I have to give the game one more point under Don't Play for the poor voice acting and the lack of a decent music score. To wrap things up, this game is an abomination. I really thought that after the lashback from Deus Ex Invisible War, that lessons had been learned and we would never have to go down this road again. Eidos Montreal showed great strides with Deus Ex Human Revolution, but unfortunately, the series regressed with Deus Ex The Fall. I would actually say that Invisible War is a better game than this by a long stride. While both games suffer from small maps and loading screens, at least Invisible War was native to PC and playable. The UI, graphics, and gunplay were all fine for the time it came out. As you can surmise from the final score, my opinion is that Deus Ex The Fall is worth nobody's time or money. If you are interested in the story, buy the book, but otherwise, don't spend your hard-earned money on this absolute travesty of a game. Deus Ex as a whole is a complex series that is beloved by many gamers. The poor treatment and lack of respect that Nfusion has shown the series here needs to be met in kind with your wallets. I usually say that it's up to the consumer as to whether they buy a game or not, but in this one particular case, I will say, don't buy this game. That is the only way the developer and publisher will get the message that this isn't the way to treat the Deus Ex series fans. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Strikeith, checking out.